The rich do not sleep the way you sleep. They fall asleep inside their desires, not their doubts. Every night, they enter the invisible world carrying one secret assumption. It's already mine. That is their code. That is their frequency. And I tell you, if you fall asleep in the same vibration, you will wake up inside their world. Tonight, I will show you how to tune your imagination to the same inner frequency that the 1% live by, the frequency of completion. You will learn how to use your own mind as a tuning fork for wealth, not by effort, not by luck, but by law. I will teach you how to enter sleep in a state of fulfillment, so real that the outer world has no choice but to mirror it back to you. You will discover how imagination is not daydreaming, it is divine creation, and the world is nothing more than imagination made visible. Before this night ends, you will know how to command money as naturally as you breathe, for money is only energy obeying the consciousness that directs it. I know the frustration of wanting more, of doing everything right, of working harder than ever, and still feeling like something unseen is blocking the flow. You look around and wonder why others seem to attract opportunities effortlessly while you fight for every inch. The truth is, wealth is not a contest. It's a vibration. You don't chase it, you align with it. The moment you stop praying for money as if it's missing and start assuming you already have it, the current shifts. The universe, which has been waiting for your conviction, begins to arrange itself to prove you right. The 1% aren't lucky, they're lucid. They understand that wealth is consciousness clothed in form. Tonight, I will help you remember that consciousness, the divine frequency that never stopped humming inside you. In this lecture, I will reveal what I call the wealth frequency of the 1%. You will learn how to enter that state each night before sleep, the sacred hour when the conscious mind releases its grip and the subconscious obeys. First, we'll uncover what this frequency really is. Not a sound or a song, but a feeling. The feeling of it is finished. Then, I'll guide you through the practice of assumption, how to see, hear, and feel your wealth as real before it appears. Finally, I'll give you the night prayer, a single act of imagination that will align your mind with the power that creates worlds. By the end of this lecture, you'll know not just how the 1% attract wealth, but why it was never luck at all. It was consciousness in motion. Here's something most people completely miss. They spend their entire lives listening for a sound that never comes through their ears. They search for success, for money, for proof, as though it were some secret note played from the heavens that only a few chosen ones can hear. But I tell you, the true wealth frequency is not a sound in the air. It is a vibration in consciousness. It hums beneath every thought, every heartbeat, every quiet breath. You can't hear it because you are it. It's the soundless sound, the eternal I am that creates worlds. When you are tuned to it, you don't chase money, you radiate wealth. You don't plead foe. Vibration of their prayers is discordant with the music of the divine. They keep saying I want, not realizing that every I want is an admission of I do not have. Desire is beautiful only when it becomes assumption, when it shifts from longing into possession. The difference between the beggar and the king is not what they ask for, but how they feel when they ask. The beggar feels the emptiness of what is missing. The king feels the certainty of what is his. Imagine two people standing before the same door. One knocks in fear, hoping to be let in. The other turns the handle with quiet assurance, knowing it already opens for him. That's the difference between the 99% and the 1%. The wealthy don't knock, they enter. They don't wait for the world to allow them. They assume the world already belongs to them. Their frequency is not need, it is completion. I want you to pause for a moment and really feel this. What does completion feel like? Not the excitement of getting, but the calmness of having. It's that sigh of relief after something is done, that inner stillness that says it is finished. That is the frequency of wealth. That is the vibration that reshapes the entire field of your reality. If you close your eyes now and imagine holding the life you want, the home, the freedom, the peace, and truly feel that it's already yours, something inside you begins to shift. You'll notice it first as a warmth in the chest, a softening of the breath, a strange calm that almost feels like power. That's the soundless sound. It's not emotional noise, it's divine stillness. When the 1% go to sleep, they do not drift into unconsciousness as the poor do, worrying, doubting, fearing the next day. No, they descend into that silence, carrying one simple feeling: I have it, that's all. No argument, no evidence, no logic, just that silent hum of completion. It's the lullaby of the gods. It's why everything they touch seems to turn to gold, because they have already accepted gold within themselves. So tonight, as you listen to this, begin to sense it, that subtle hum that's been there all along. You don't have to create it, you only have to remember it. It's the sound beneath thought, the stillness beneath striving. That's where wealth begins, not with words, not with action, but with the inner vibration of already having. But to maintain that vibration, to let it move from fleeting moment to living state, you must learn where creation truly happens, in the sacred space between waking and sleep. For sleep is not escape, it is creation's workshop. What feeling do you associate with completion? Describe it in the comments below. Here is the truth that most never grasp. The rich do not hope for wealth, they assume it. They do not pray as beggars, they declare as creators. When they close their eyes at night, they do not plead, I want success. They feel, I am success. The entire world bends to that inner declaration. This is what I mean when I say, you do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. The subconscious, being the divine servant, accepts only one master, the tone of your conviction. You can say I am rich 100 times, but if you still feel poor, the law reads the feeling, not the words. The 1% understand this, consciously or not. They live from being, not striving. That is the secret habit hidden in plain sight. Think of a radio. You can't hear a station until you tune to its frequency, yet the signal has been there all along. Wealth is that signal, ever present but unheard by those tuned to the consciousness of poverty. The 1% simply live on a different frequency. They don't chase the signal, they become the receiver. When you align your imagination with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you've tuned in. You don't need to force anything to appear. You only need to remain on that channel long enough for the outer world to reflect it. It's the law of correspondence. As within, so without. Every visible condition is the echo of an invisible assumption. Change the assumption, and the echo must change. The rich man, though surrounded by luxury, could still live in poverty consciousness and lose everything. The poor man, once awakened to his inner wealth, will draw abundance from the air itself. So stop asking, how will it come? The how belongs to the bridge of incidents, not to you. Your only task is to be the wealth, be the light, be the completion. If you can feel it, it's already forming. If you can rest in it, it must appear. And now that you know the secret of assumption, you must understand how the world obeys it, how the outer mirrors the inner through the divine law of correspondence. The ancient Hermetic law says, as within, so without. Few realize how literal that is. The universe is not reacting to your actions, it's responding to your assumptions. The 1% live by this law instinctively. They see every event as feedback, not punishment or reward, but reflection. When they experience lack, they don't blame circumstances, they adjust consciousness. Think of the world as a mirror. If you stand before a mirror and frown, you can't change the reflection by painting over the glass. You must change your expression. Likewise, if you want the world to reflect wealth, you must assume wealth within. The mirror cannot show what you refuse to feel. This is the divine genius behind imagination. The outer world is imagination congealed, solidified thought, and sustained feeling. Everything you now call real began as an unseen vibration, a silent decree. The house, the car, the opportunity, all first imagined, then believed, then seen. You're surrounded by imagination made visible, but you've forgotten that you are its source. When you realize this, responsibility becomes power. you stop reacting and start creating. The same energy that once worried now commands. Every reaction is a seed. Plant fear, and you harvest more fear. Plant faith, and you reap miracles. This is the true wealth frequency. Not getting more, but remembering you are the cause. I remember a phase in my life when I ardently wished to establish my family in a specific house, in a neighborhood that seemed far beyond my means at the time. Every night, before sleeping, I didn't just visualize the house. I transported myself there. I felt the touch of the cool doorknob of the front door in my hand. I heard the distinct sound of the wooden floor under my feet, and I felt the calm, deep joy of being home, knowing that this was my place. I didn't worry about the how. I simply lived in the feeling of having already arrived. I did this night after night. Months went by, and already been created and sustained in my imagination. And now, to bring it all together, let me show you how to make this practical, how to align yourself nightly with the state of fulfillment until wealth becomes your natural vibration. What I am about to share may sound simple, even too simple, but I promise you, it is the hinge on which the entire law turns. The outer world is nothing but the mirror of the inner, and the mirror is always shaped in the hours when you are most still, when you drift into sleep. I discovered long ago that the final thought before sleep is the seed of tomorrow. The subconscious, that tireless builder, accepts without question whatever image or feeling you impress upon it as you surrender to rest. And whatever it accepts, it reproduces faithfully. Most of humanity falls asleep, rehearsing fear. They replay the day's disappointments, the bills, the losses, the doubts. And so the subconscious, obedient as ever, constructs another day to match the tone of their last thoughts. They rise and wonder why nothing changes, unaware that their nights have been writing the script their days perform. But the 1%, those who understand the law, do something very different. They fall asleep, not in memory, but in prophecy. They don't review what has been, they rest in what shall be. In feeling is the secret. I wrote, sleep is the door into heaven. That wasn't poetry, it was the physics of consciousness. The drowsy state is the bridge between your conscious mind, the chooser, and your subconscious mind, the creator. In that moment, when you hover between waking and dreaming, your imagination becomes law. The walls of separation fall, and what you feel in that silence becomes your reality. Let me tell you something remarkable that illustrates this perfectly. Years ago, I desired to visit my family in Barbados, but I had no money, no ticket, no visible means. I could have despaired, but I remembered the law. So each night before sleep, I imagined myself already in Barbados. I smelled the salt in the air, felt the humid breeze, saw the palms through my window. I didn't imagine traveling, I imagined having arrived. I drifted to sleep in that feeling night after night. Within weeks, the impossible happened. A passage was paid for me by one who had no idea of my desire. I had tuned to the frequency of fulfillment, and the world rearranged itself to match. That's how sleep works. It's not rest, it's reception. Every night you hand the universe your instructions. Most hand over worry, the wise hand over assumption. The subconscious doesn't argue, it creates. So if you wish to change your life, don't start with your actions, start with how you sleep. Tonight, before you rest, close your eyes and imagine one scene that implies your wish is fulfilled. Make it short, make it simple, but make it real. It could be a friend congratulating you, a headline announcing your success, a moment of peace in your new home. Feel it vividly, then let yourself drift. That final mood, not the scene, but the mood, is the signal. That's what the subconscious receives, and by law, it must express it. But this brings us to something even deeper, the hidden habit that separates the 1% from the rest. They don't enter sleep with wishful thinking. They enter as masters of assumption. Let me show you how they do it. If this key, this secret about the power of sleep, has resonated with you and opened a new door in your mind, show your acknowledgement by liking this video. It helps the message find others who are also ready to awaken. Now, Let's dive into the heart of mastery, into the power of your inner conversation. Here's something that will change everything for you. If you hear it not with the ears of the outer man, but with the understanding of the inner man. The universe does not obey your effort, your struggle, or your ambition. It obeys your word. But this word is not mere sound. It is the vibration of conviction. It is the tone of faith that lives beneath speech. You speak every moment of your life, not just with your mouth, but with your feeling, with your inner conversation, with your reaction to every scene you witness. The 1% are those who have learned to make every word, both spoken and unspoken, align with the law of assumption. They speak only from the end, never from the lack. Their word, like the word of God, never returns void. In Scripture it is written, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." That is not history, it is psychology. The word is your imagination. Every inner statement you make with feeling becomes flesh, and what you call reality is merely the word fulfilled. Most people speak against themselves all day long, and then wonder why their lives oppose their desires. They say, "I can't afford this. Things never work out for me. I'm trying my best, but nothing changes." Each of those words is a decree, and the law, perfect and unjudging, obeys it precisely. There is no punishment in this. There is only reflection. To command reality, you must learn to speak from power, not to power. You don't beg the world to give you what you want. You declare that it already belongs to you. Feel the difference in these two phrases. I hope I'll be rich someday, and I am rich now. The first is a vibration of waiting. The second is a vibration of being. When you speak from being, you are speaking the language of God, the language of I am. This is the language that creates, sustains, and governs all form. The 1% speak this language instinctively. They don't talk about struggle or limitation. Their words reveal identity. Listen closely to a man of wealth, not the one who flaunts his possessions, but the one who lives in quiet certainty. His words are few, his tone calm, his statements final. He never argues with appearances. He simply declares and allows. That calmness is the echo of mastery. The universe reads tone, not the vocabulary. The tone of assurance moves mountains. The tone of anxiety creates walls. So, start listening to yourself. What are you declaring daily without realizing it? Are your words shaping wealth or reinforcing want? Every I am you speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. If you say, "I am tired, I am broke, I am unlucky," the subconscious takes those words as commands. You think you're describing life, but you're prescribing it. You are the author, not the witness. The outer world is your script in performance. I tell you, this law is infallible. Speak from faith, and faith will appear. Speak from doubt, and doubt will harden into form. Every word becomes seed. The 1% have mastered the art of planting only what they wish to harvest. But even deeper than speech is the inner dialogue, the constant stream of silent words you speak within. That's where your true decrees are written, and that's where your world is born. If you could record the private inner speech of the wealthy and the impoverished, you would find two completely different languages. The poor man's inner world is filled with argument, complaint, fear, and justification. The rich man's mind is quiet, assured, and already satisfied. It's not the bank account that separates them, it's the inner conversation. The poor man looks at lack and says, "This is all there is." The rich man sees lack and says, "That was once my old belief." The difference is subtle, but it's everything. Your inner conversation is your prayer. Every word you whisper to yourself becomes a command to your subconscious, and the subconscious never rejects a feeling. It accepts it as fact. So when you rehearse failure in thought, when you worry, when you entertain fear, you are praying for more of it. You might not mean to, but the law reads feeling, not intention. The inner voice of the 1% has one theme: assumption. They rehearse success before it happens. They speak inwardly, as though everything they desire has already been completed. I once knew a woman who constantly repeated to herself, "Everything works in my favor." At first, she didn't believe it. She was drowning in debt, her relationships in turmoil, but she kept the phrase alive in her mind, not as hope, but as habit. She said it when she woke, as she walked, as she fell asleep. Slowly, her tone changed. It stopped being an affirmation and became a truth. And when that happened, the world began to move. Unexpected payments arrived. Old tensions dissolved. Opportunities opened. She wrote to me saying, "Neville, I didn't attract anything new. I just realized everything was always working in my favor." That's how it works. You change your world not by action, but by assumption, by altering the inner conversation that defines your life. If you want to change your life, don't start with doing, start with saying. Begin with new inner words. Talk to yourself as the person you wish to be. Speak as the successful one, the healed one, the loved one. And as you do, the outer will mirror the new dialogue. Stop debating with facts. Facts are old thoughts crystallized. Speak new truths into being. Say, "I am wealthy," even when the evidence denies it. Say, "I am free," even when the chains still rattle. The moment you speak it with conviction, the chains begin to dissolve. Not because you force them to, but because they no longer belong to the identity you've assumed. The subconscious is like a loyal servant standing before its king. It listens not to your words, but to your tone. If your tone is casual, it waits. If your tone is uncertain, it hesitates. But if your tone is final, it obeys. The 1% have mastered that tone. Their inner voice carries authority, not anxiety. So tonight, pay attention to the words you think, not the words you say. Catch yourself mid-thought and ask, is this the speech of the king or the beggar? Change the sentence, change the tone. You'll feel it immediately. That shift from pleading to declaring, that's the moment you've stepped onto the throne. But to understand how this inner speech shapes your world, we must go back to the beginning, to the principle that the word becomes flesh. Everything you now see, touch, and experience is nothing more than your inner words made visible. Every object, every event, every relationship began as a line of dialogue in the theater of your mind. You may have forgotten the words, but the play remembers. That is what it means when Scripture says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." Your imagination is the creative word. It's not metaphorical, it's mechanical. The moment you speak inwardly with feeling, that vibration moves through the field of consciousness and solidifies as experience. You can test this easily. Begin to speak within yourself as though you are someone else, entirely wealthier, freer, at peace. Maintain it for a few days and watch how the outer world subtly rearranges. Conversations shift, people behave differently, new opportunities appear. That is not coincidence, that is correspondence. The word has taken on flesh. I remember a man who came to me many years ago, desperate to change his fortune. He had tried every technique, every ritual, and nothing worked. I told him, stop trying to make things happen. Start declaring. He asked, but won't I be lying? I said, everything you see now was once an unseen lie someone dared to believe. He began to say within himself, I am a prosperous man. I am admired. Everything I touch prospers. Within months, his entire life changed. Business flowed, relationships healed, and he confessed, Neville, I didn't do anything new. I just started speaking truth instead of fact. That's the secret. Facts are temporary. Truth is eternal. The truth is that you are the creator. The outer world is your echo. When you speak truth, that is, speak from the end, the echo must change. This is the real law of attraction people talk about without understanding. You're not attracting, you're reproducing. The outer is your inner word, reproduced in form. So begin now to speak differently. If the outer world says you are small, say within, I am vast. If it says you are poor, say, I am rich. Speak not to convince the world, but to convince yourself. For when you believe it inwardly, the world has no choice but to agree. The world is obedient imagination. The greatest secret of the 1% is that they never let the world's words define them. They define the world. They understand that language is the tool of creation, and silence, when filled with feeling, is its highest form. And the highest form of feeling, the emotional signature that seals your word as law, is gratitude. Gratitude is the atmosphere of completion. It's not just saying thank you, it's feeling thank you. When you feel gratitude, you're declaring to the universe, it is done. The ungrateful man can pray for years and receive nothing because his prayer carries the vibration of absence. The grateful man prays once and rests because his prayer carries the vibration of fulfillment. Gratitude is the frequency of the fulfilled wish. The 1% live in gratitude naturally. They don't wait for a reason, they begin from it. They know that appreciation multiplies what it touches. Every time you say thank you sincerely, you harmonize with the law of increase. You acknowledge abundance, and acknowledgement is the signal that opens the next channel of supply. The ungrateful mind is closed. It believes nothing more can come. The grateful mind is open. It expects miracles and finds them everywhere. Many of you might look at your current circumstances and say there is nothing to be. Gratitude to summon wealth. Once, a man came to me disheartened, saying, "Neville, I have nothing to be thankful for." I said, "Then be thankful for breath." He laughed, but I continued, "Thankfulness is not a reaction, it's a cause." Gratitude is the sound that summons more to be grateful for. He began to practice it, not as a technique, but as a way of being. Each morning he found one thing to bless: his health, his family, even his challenges. Within months, his entire life transformed. Opportunities came without effort, debts dissolved. He had attuned himself to the frequency of grace. Gratitude is faith's resting face. It is silent confidence that the law has already acted. When you feel thankful, you stop searching, you relax, and in that relaxation, the subconscious completes its work. That's why I tell my students, replace I need with thank you. The difference is worlds apart. I need declares lack. Thank you declares receipt. The universe is a mirror. It can only give you what you believe you already have. Start small. Each night before sleep, review the day and find 3 things, however simple, to bless. The more you bless, the more you'll find. Soon you'll notice that gratitude becomes automatic, like breathing. And when that happens, you stabilize the state of wealth. You no longer oscillate between doubt and faith. You live in quiet certainty. This is the heart of the 1%'s vibration. They've made gratitude habitual. It's their background music, plays beneath every thought, every action, every moment of rest. That's why they move through life with ease. They're not waiting for blessings, they are the blessing. What is the one thing, however, to his little and calls it safety? The rich man releases his abundance and calls it faith, yet both are living by the same law. Only one is obeying it consciously, while the other fights against it in fear. The law of circulation is not about giving from duty or loss. It's the awareness that giving and receiving are one continuous act, one motion of the same divine current. You can no more give without receiving than you can inhale without exhaling. The 1% live by this law instinctively. They don't hoard, they let energy move. They don't fear depletion. They know supply is infinite when consciousness knows itself as the source. Think of a river, always flowing, always giving. The water that leaves its source never worries about return. It knows the law of flow ensures its replenishment. But when that river is dammed by fear, it stagnates. It begins to smell, to breed disease. So too does the consciousness that clings. The moment you hold too tightly to what you have, you choke the current that sustains it. You must give to prove to yourself that you already possess, for you cannot give what you do not have. Giving is not charity, it's a creative affirmation. Every time you give, whether it's a coin, a smile, or a blessing, you declare to your subconscious, I have more than enough. When I was first learning this law, I tested it with something small. I began to give freely to those who crossed my path, not from obligation, but from joy. I gave to those who could not return it, and I gave to those who could. I didn't calculate, I didn't measure. I simply gave from the awareness that I am the source. Soon, I noticed something curious. As I gave, more began to flow. Unlooked for Gifts, unexpected opportunities, invisible channels of provision began to appear as though the universe itself were echoing back. I am your supply, it is written. To him who has, more will be given. That isn't favoritism, it's frequency. When you know you have, you act from abundance. And when you act from abundance, you align with the flow of divine provision. The poor man asks for more because he sees lack. The rich man gives because he sees overflow. The giving itself is the evidence of faith. It says, I trust that supply is endless, so don't ask, what if I lose by giving? Ask instead, what if I cut off the flow by withholding? Life does not reward stagnation. The 1% give not to be seen, not to receive applause or recognition, but because giving is their nature. They understand that true wealth is not measured by possession, but by circulation. Tonight, begin to practice this law. Don't give from fear or duty, give from joy. Give from the knowing that you are the wellspring of abundance. And each time you give, whether it's a gift, a kind word, or even a vision of another's blessing, affirm within yourself, I give as God gives, freely, joyfully, endlessly. The law will respond with precision, and your world will begin to mirror your generosity in forms you could never plan. But giving is more than an action. It's a declaration of identity. When you give, you are saying something profound to your own subconscious. I am already what I seek. Giving is a silent sermon. It's the soul's way of declaring, I am. The world teaches that you give after you receive, but the law of consciousness reverses that order. You must give before you see evidence, because giving itself is the evidence of belief. The 1% know this secret. They give as if the supply were endless, because in consciousness, it is. To give is to embody the truth that all wealth already flows from within. You're not handing something away. You're extending yourself, multiplying your image in another. The poor man thinks giving diminishes him. The rich man knows it expands him. The poor man gives with trembling hands, hoping for return. The rich man gives with laughter, knowing return is inevitable. I remember a young artist who once came to me saying, Neville, I want to prosper, but I have nothing to give. I told him, then give imagination. He looked confused, so I explained, bless others with your thought. Picture them happy, successful, fulfilled. That is giving in its highest form. You will never outgive imagination, for it is the currency of God. He began each morning sending blessings to those he envied, picturing their joy until he felt it as his own. Within months, his own work began to sell, and his envy turned to gratitude. He had discovered the divine exchange. To give imaginatively is to receive exponentially. Every act of generosity is a statement to the subconscious. I am abundant enough to share, and the subconscious, taking you at your word, produces circumstances that match your assumption. The one who gives from fullness multiplies his fullness. The one who withholds declares lack and sees it increase. This is the hidden geometry of wealth. What you extend returns amplified. To bless is to call forth good. It's not superstition or sentiment. It's a creative decree. The act of blessing turns imagination into grace, because in blessing, you're declaring divine order already present. I bless everything I touch, not as a ritual, but as a remembrance. When I handle money, I bless it not for its amount, but for its circulation. I say quietly, you are divine energy in motion. Multiply, bless, and return. The act of blessing transforms not because it changes outer things directly, but because it changes you. It shifts your vibration from criticism to creation, from scarcity to sufficiency. If there is one secret that separates the masters of wealth from the dreamers of it, it is this: the 1% have learned to guard the gates of the mind. They understand that imagination, once impregnated by thought, must bring forth its likeness in form. So they treat thought as sacred. They know that every idea entertained, every reaction indulged, is a seed thrown into the fertile soil of the subconscious, and that soil does not discriminate. It will grow weeds with the same devotion it grows fruit. The poor man allows every thought to wander freely through his mind: fear, envy, doubt, complaint, and he calls it realism. The rich man chooses his thoughts deliberately and calls it faith. This is the mental diet of kings. You see, awareness is your sentinel, your invisible guardian, standing at the gate of imagination. Its duty is not to fight, but to select. You can't stop thoughts from arising, just as you can't stop the wind from blowing, but you can decide which gusts enter your house and which pass by. Most people have surrendered that power without realizing it. They believe their thoughts are visitors. They don't see that they are the hosts. And whatever you host in consciousness, you must serve in experience. So begin to watch yourself. Watch how many times in an hour you speak inwardly of lack. How often you rehearse worry as though it were prayer. That's not harmless musing. That's creation in its infancy. The subconscious doesn't wait for ceremony. It listens every moment. The feeling behind your words is your faith. The repetition of that feeling is your decree. So guard the gate. Don't let fear cross the threshold, not even disguised as logic. Don't entertain envy under the mask of observation. The world you see tomorrow is being shaped by the thoughts you permit today. This is why Scripture tells you, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It doesn't say by changing your actions, but by changing your thinking. For actions are shadows cast by thought. The 1% know this. They curate their inner world like art collectors. They study their own reactions and revise them immediately. They don't allow the outer world to dictate the inner weather. They command the climate of their mind. This vigilance isn't strain. It's discipline born of awareness. When a negative thought arises, don't fight it. Replace it. When the voice of fear says you'll fail, answer softly, I succeed. When doubt whispers it's not working, respond, everything is working in divine order. Speak as though the kingdom were already secure, and soon it will be. But mental discipline alone is not enough without its counterpart, persistence in faith. Persistence is not stubbornness. It's not the clenched jaw of willpower, but the quiet repetition of faith. It's the refusal to descend from the state of fulfillment, no matter what appearances suggest. The 1% understand this law. Instinctively, they don't let time discourage them, because they know time is only the servant of assumption. Every great manifestation moves through the same rhythm: assumption, persistence, realization. The outer world always lags behind the inner by a degree. Most people, when they see no immediate proof, abandon the state and return to lack. The wise persist. They remain faithful to the unseen until it crystallizes. They know that feeling real precedes being real. I wrote, he who persists in the assumption will see it harden into fact. That is the law in a single line. No exception, no delay. Your persistence is the guarantee of materialization. Each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're adding substance to the invisible structure of your desire. Eventually, it becomes so dense that it must appear. I remember a student who imagined her promotion for months. Nothing seemed to move. Her colleagues were chosen over her again and again, but she refused to waver. Each night she fell asleep, feeling herself congratulated, hearing her boss say, "You've earned it." One morning, without warning, her superior resigned and she was offered the position the same day. She said, "Neville, I didn't even want it anymore. I just knew it was mine." That's the power of persistence. When the state becomes natural, creation completes itself. Persistence is the proof of belief. You don't persist in what you doubt. You persist in what you know. It's faith carried through time. So persist. When doubt knocks, remain still. When appearances contradict you, smile and say, "It is already done." When nothing happens, remember the seed is germinating underground. Don't dig it up, water it with faith. The world cannot resist a mind that refuses to move from conviction. And now, having mastered your mind, your words, and your emotions, it's time to fulfill the final law of wealth, the law of circulation, the art of giving as God gives effortlessly and without fear. If this journey of revelation about the wealth frequency has awakened something deep within you, a recognition of a power that has always been there. Then subscribe to the channel to continue deepening this knowledge. What does this teaching awaken in you? What was the key that opened a new door in your perception? As a ritual of reflection for the day, tonight, before you sleep, lie down in silence and review an event from your day that did not bring you peace. Do not relive it with resentment. Instead, rewrite it in your imagination. See it unfold exactly as you wish it had happened. Feel the joy, the relief, and the satisfaction of this new memory. Then, fall asleep in that feeling of gratitude. Make this your only work tonight, and watch as the world begins to conform to your version of the story. Rest now, not as a seeker, but as a sovereign.